And how do those operations succeed actually in exploiting the Western media environments and using these techniques such as mirror accusations and agents of influence to introduce and amplify their narratives within the democratic societies?
Yeah, again, we can give the example, in the Soviet period, after the KGB, the first chief director, when they created the Service A, which was focused exclusively on conducting active measures operations, and included in active measures was disinformation operations around the world. They came up with this famous project called Infeksia, Operation Infection, where they claimed that the US, the CIA, and the Department of Defense had deliberately created the AIDS pandemic and spread it around the world for different purposes. And how did they do it? There was a nugget of information that they were aware that there were groups in the United States were very concerned about the AIDS epidemic, which, in the 80s became late 70s, 80s became of great concern to a lot of people, including vulnerable communities in the United States. The KGB took that information and then they amplified it, or they twisted it. They added elements which were fabricated to weaponize it against the US government, to try and discredit the US government both domestically and internationally. And, in a nutshell, I won't go through the whole operation, but they had a journalist, one of their agents in India, publish it in an Indian newspaper. And then it's important to say that the Soviet intelligence services and the Russian intelligence services today act in close coordination with the official overt information organizations of the Russian Federation. So whether it's Russia Today, Sputnik, the Kremlin spokesman, Maria Zakharova in the MFA, they're all working together in a unified information campaign. And at that time, they used the information from this article in the Indian newspaper. They then turned that in, TASS picked it up and they published it. I think it was published in the Literaturная Gazeta, an article about this. And then Western media sources started to pick up on the story and repeat the story, right? And I think, the pinnacle was when it reached, I think it was ABC. I don't want to get the channel wrong, but one of our main news networks presented the story on national TV in the United States. And it was all based on disinformation. It was all based on a twist of, one little piece of information that was amplified in a distorted manner with the specific goal of undermining the US government and the reputation of the US government. And as a matter of fact, the Reagan administration called the Soviets out on this. And Premier Gorbachev eventually had to admit that, yes, this was all a fabricated story. And they retracted the story in the late 80s, but still, there are still people today that believe aspects of the story. And that shows you how deeply it can get into the subconscious or even the conscious of an audience.